So from very young age, I was fascinated by the aging process. I discovered that I want to live forever. I discovered that when we age, we start to suffer more and more from aging-related diseases. And I realized that a lot of us are starting to lose the quality of life, what we call health span, when we're getting older. So basically, we might live to 80, but in the last 20 years or so, we are not living in the best condition as possible. And I wanted to challenge that and say, why should we do that? How can we change that? How can we reverse the clock? And how can we live better longer? Hi, my name is Gil Blander, and I'm the founder and chief scientific officer of InsideTracker. And you are at Behind the Brand with Brian Elliott.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the show. Gil, welcome.
Thank you.
I usually ask my guests, how did you get this job?
So I haven't got this job. I had to to create it. So I haven't got it.
Well, say more about that. How did you create it?
That's a long story, but I'll try to make it shorter. So from very young age, I was fascinated by the aging process. I discovered that I want to live forever. I discovered that when we age, we start to suffer more and more from aging-related diseases. And I realized that a lot of us are starting to lose the quality of life, what we call health span, when we're getting older. So basically, we might live to 80, but in the last 20 years or so, we are not living in the best condition as possible. And I wanted to challenge that and say, why should we do that? How can we change that? How can we reverse the clock? And how can we live better longer? And that's why I decided to become a scientist in biology, a PhD from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, postdoctoral fellowship at MIT. In both cases, I studied aging or aging-related diseases. And then when I came to MIT, I started to be exposed to what I call the Kendall Square environment. The Kendall Square is the area very close to MIT that there are maybe thousands of companies, biotech, high-tech, pharmaceutical, and so on. And I realized that I might contribute more to humanity for starting my own company than being a professor in the academia. Mm-hmm. And that's why I moved to the industry, worked in a computational biology, system biology company. And at that time, I came together with a couple of other scientists and a clinician to the idea of InsideTracker. And the idea of InsideTracker is pretty simple. Let's help people live better longer based on what's happening inside the body. So let's provide to them the right information, the right recommendation, the right intervention based on what's happening inside their body, allow them to do the intervention and then test again, and hopefully allow them to live better and longer. So that's a short explanation of how did I came with this job.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to unpack InsideTracker and everything that it does. I'm fascinated by this idea too of being in control of one's health. We're walking around in this meat suit. We have no idea what's happening under the hood most of the time, how it operates, what's good for us, what's not good for us. Some people, you see them, they can smoke for 90 years and no problems. Others, my grandparents, for example, smoked a lot and lost their lives to emphysema, too early. And so a lot of this is genetic. We have no idea what's coming after us. But I wanted to go back to what you said earlier, which is you wanted to live forever. Really? You wanted to live forever? At what age were you thinking about this? And what was the context behind this desire to live a long life?
Yeah, that was at the age of 12. And actually what happened is a relative of mine passed away from cancer.
Sure.
And instead of being sad about her passing away, I was really scared about myself. I said, it will happen to me. I think that's happened a lot for kids that everyone is different, but there is a certain age that you're starting to be worried about your future.
Yeah.
So I assume that I decided to take some action about that. Some other are basically, a lot of us are putting it at the back burner of the brain and forget about it and say, oh, it will happen like in 70 years, so who cares? But I took a more pragmatic, I would say, approach and said, okay, let's try to understand and let's try to unpack and let's try to see how can we deal with that. And that was very early. Today, there are hundreds of, if not thousands of labs that studying aging. Today, it's really in fashion. At that time, nobody thought about it. I was trying to find labs that I can join. And actually, in Israel, I couldn't find any. So I came to my professor at the Weizmann and told him, hey, you are studying cancer, but I really care about aging. So let's do something that combine cancer and aging. And he was nice enough to allow me to do that. But I think that now, if you look at the time, it was maybe, 20, 25 years ago. Now there are so many labs and so much study and so so many companies that are dealing with that, and there's so much money investment money that injected into that it's a really exciting time for us. And I think that it's really doable to increase the health span. I'm not sure the lifespan, but the health span. So basically allow all of us to reach our potential, but live in a good health. And maybe also the lifespan with some exciting new discoveries that coming again and again that can help us maybe to extend our lifespan.
Yes. I mean, I'm very personally interested in this for lots of different reasons. And I've been vocal on this podcast before, talking about my personal story. If you don't know it, I'll just recap you quickly. I won't bore you with all the details. But basically, I'm adopted. I was given up for adoption at birth, and I didn't know any blood relatives for the first 30 years of my life. I didn't look like anyone in my family. I didn't act like anyone in my family. My last name is Elliot, but that's not my real name. That's my adopted name. And so I never really knew where I came from. I didn't know any DNA, medical history. And when you're adopted, this is part of the, frustration is at some point you want to know your own personal medical history. You want to know what's happening under the hood. You want to know, does cancer, diabetes, or, heart disease run in my family? Why is I have naturally high cholesterol just based on my DNA. Why is that? I'm also incredibly healthy in other places. I have good, muscles and ligaments and joints. I haven't had any, knock on wood, problems. I've been an athlete my whole life. I just had no answers. And so when I found my birth parents, I wanted to know their history. And so a few years ago, I did find them and, found out all these very interesting facts. But, that said, I think understanding your own body, having responsibility for your own health, it's something that it's something that everyone wants, I think, at some point and needs. And I relate to this idea that you just talked about of, seeing a loved one pass away and then wanting to get serious and solve a problem. My sister did this. She's a nurse at Stanford Hospital. My dad did not live a long life. He had a lot of health issues. I think if he would have had InsideTracker, he might have been able to predict some of these things that were happening in his body that he had no idea about. So, for those that are thinking about looking at this service or looking into it, I personally feel like it's one of the most important things you can do. And a big regret that I have is that I haven't been doing that. Up to about maybe 5 years ago, I wasn't doing regular blood panels to test to see where I'm at, hormone levels or, vitamin and mineral levels, electrolytes. I mean, all the things that, maybe InsideTracker's looking at. I just think this is a fascinating, important area.
Yeah, I agree. And it's very good for you to have a baseline and have a trend. So as you said, if you had it earlier, you could see even a small change in the trend versus whether something is going too high or something is going too low, and then you can intervene earlier. And basically, it's all about the prevention versus treatment. Today, our healthcare system is trained to treat a disease, not to prevent a disease.
That's right.
And we need to have the paradigm shift to come and say, hey, why to treat a disease if you can prevent it before? And in order to prevent, you need to understand whether you are going in the past into the disease or you are not, and then to allow you to focus on what you need to focus on, because I might have more chance to have cardiovascular disease, you might have more chance to have diabetes, someone else might have a higher chance to have high inflammation. And if we'll understand that and we know that, then the intervention for each of us might be very different.
Do you know this guy, Brian Johnson, who is hacking his health, spending $2 million a year doing all these intricate tests? What do you think about that?
I think that it's good for the longevity field, because he is like a noise maker in a way, making a lot of noise. I think that what he's doing is, in my opinion, insane. To take 550 supplement a day and I don't know, have like a 50 personal trainer. So that's an example of, I wouldn't say billionaire, I'm not sure that he's a billionaire, but someone that have a lot of money and a lot of spare time, and then trying to biohack his body. I think that it might be too much, but again, if it's work for him, it's great. I don't think that it's something that you can replicate and bring it to the 8 billion people in the world. It might be good for another 100 Brian Johnson, but not for everyone.
Yeah. I met Brian personally, and I found him to be very sincere and authentic. When I first saw him and saw what he was doing, I kind of thought he was like P.T. Barnum. Do you know who P.T. Barnum is?
No, I don't.
So this is way before my time and your time, but like P.T. Barnum was this sort of American showman. He developed Barnum and Bailey Circus, for example, which is like a big circus in the United States back in, I think, the 19th century someplace. And he created spectacles. He created big, events and got people really excited about things. And he's, this movie, The Greatest Showman, is sort of...
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Okay.
Yeah, loosely.
It's a great movie, yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So Brian is sort of taking a page, I think, from P.T. Barnum's playbook, which is create this big spectacle, cause a lot of controversy. He's actually a master marketer, if you ask me, because he's taken the 150 supplements that he's taking, and now he's consolidated it into like a powder drink, which you can buy and subscribe to for like $39 a month. So he's created this big, attention-getting platform, and now he's selling products. So I found him to be very authentic. I think he's helping to pave the way, bring down the barriers to entry that traditional medicine has put up very high walls. And I think InsideTracker is a part of that movement to bring the walls down, to make healthcare, or at least preventive maintenance, affordable and accessible to everyone. And this is one of the things I love about your product, about your service so far, is that you don't have to be rich to afford this. I mean, you should be doing this anyway, and you should have control and access to your own information at your fingertips, at a mobile app, which you guys have. I think that's amazing. Let's look at the other side of this coin, which is what's wrong with this industry right now? I mean, we could probably talk for hours about what's wrong with traditional medicine. I have my beef with doctors. I think everything's a business, including, my doctor. He just wants my money. She just wants my money. I felt like, cattle before, just being herded into a medical office. I don't love the experience. They give you very little time. They take a lot of money. They don't give you a lot of value. They're treating the sickness, not trying to prevent things. But in the wellness space, what's wrong still with the wellness space? Why hasn't it advanced further than it has?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of noise in this business. So there are a lot of, I will call it a gurus, but you can call them differently, that come and say, oh, I'm 65 and I look the best and I have a six-pack, and because I have a six-pack, so you need to eat like me and exercise like me and I don't know, sleep like me.
Yeah.
While our way of thinking is each of us is unique, and the way that you eat might not fit to the way that I should eat, and the way that you exercise might not fit the way that you exercise, and the way that I supplement shouldn't be the way that you supplement. Everyone have a different needs. We are a very complex machine, and because of that, it should be very personal. So I think that that's the difference between what we do and let's say other. And again, going to the industry, I feel like I feel very sad about it, because when I started, it wasn't as bad as it is today. You see more and more gurus like that coming, and they basically have their mantra, and because they have 5 million followers on Instagram, or people are buying and say, oh yeah, I will follow them, instead of following the science. So I think that that's a major problem in the, let's say, in the wellness domain right now.
Yeah. How about false positives? So some critics of this, and I'm not one of them, although I'm cautious, I want to follow the science. Some people will say there's a lot of false positives, and so you might, follow this path incorrectly, or worry about something that seems to be an issue, but actually is not an issue at all.
I think that you're talking about the worried well, in a way. Someone that see something that I think that a lot of the clinicians are saying that don't worry about it. It's okay. It's still in the normal range.
The hypochondriacs.
But I think that it's wrong, and I'll tell you why. Let's take an example of LDL cholesterol or ApoB, which is basically markers that can predict in long term that you might have higher chance for cardiovascular diseases.
Yep.
And what a clinician will say, if you are below 130 on LDL cholesterol, don't worry about it. You don't need to do anything. What we are saying, and it sounds like, Brian, you agree with me, have a baseline and try to see whether you have a trend that's going up. And even if you are below the 130, but your trend is going up, or whether you are below the 130, but we can see that people like you should be a bit lower, then intervene then. And I'm not saying take drug. What we recommend is mainly food, supplement, exercise, and lifestyle changes. So it's not like take drug. Maybe you need to take drug if it won't work for you. But there are a lot of intervention, natural and simple intervention that you can take in order to prevent you to reach to the line of 130 and then go to the clinician. Then will start paying attention. Yeah. And also, it's well known that the plaques in the arteries, it's not like at the point of the 130 they're starting to form. They are forming slowly but surely from you being in your 20s. It's not like it's starting at the age of 55 or 60. So I think that the prevention is very important. And I think that, by the way, a lot of clinicians agree with that. But unfortunately, they don't have time and they don't have the resource, and they don't get, as you said, compensate for prevention. They get compensate by taking the diabetic and preventing him to get to the hospital. That's how they compensate.
And I think one of these gurus that I heard talk about this lately, and I've met him personally, is this guy named Dr. Mike. And Dr. Mike, he's a very well-intentioned young doctor. He's 30-something. He has 10 million followers on YouTube, a big TikTok presence. But he's a traditional doctor. And, he was kind of criticizing platforms like InsideTracker and maybe like the Whoop strap and other things that would sort of give you an idea of where you are currently. Right. And, he was criticizing it because he thought it would just give a lot of people anxiety or, make them become hypochondriacs. And I'm with you. I think I would like to know, and it's mainly because of my personal situation, right? Like for 30 years, I was sort of a ticking time bomb. I had no idea because I had no family history of medical or anything because when you're adopted, it's a state secret. It's put in a vault. You don't have access to it. And I still actually don't technically have access to it. I had to find my birth parents on my own and asked them about their personal history. So imagine going to the doctor and you break a bone or you're sick and it has all these 2 or 3 or 4 pages of questions like, what's your family history? Does this run in your family? For 30 years, I had to say, I don't know. And doctors were frustrated with me and said, what do you mean you don't know? And I said, well, I'm adopted. I am legally not allowed to have access to my own personal medical information. And so, I feel I have strong opinions about that. But anyway, so I'm glad that I can now get access to that. Can you help unpack sort of what you can expect if you're new to the InsideTracker experience? I could talk about it from my experience, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, of course. Someone that is new to InsideTracker can start with just uploading blood data that you receive from your primary care physician. Or if you want, we can supply to you the blood test and we can test it for you and you can go to Quest Diagnostic Test and then receive the data. You can also, if you want to get a bit deeper, you can test the DNA with us, or you can bring the DNA data from 23andMe or Ancestry.com. You can also connect your fitness tracker, and very soon you can also use a food recognition platform that we developed that you can scan the food, and based on that we will give you a better recommendation, because we know exactly how do you behave in a span of a week. And based on that, you can receive very detailed information about where do you stand based on a specific scores related to heart health and sleep and cognition and so on. And you can also build an action plan that allow us to look at those goals and provide to you around 5 interventions that are very personalized for you. And then you can follow those interventions. If you want, you can check in and say, I've done it or I haven't done it. If you have a fitness tracker, a lot of the check-in can be automatically from that. We can also send you some pro tips that every day in the morning, if you haven't slept well, we can tell you how can you try to improve it to sleep better the next night, or post-exercise, tell you how much protein you should eat and how much carb and how much water. So a lot of tools that can allow you to basically optimize yourself and become a better you, and hopefully, again, live better longer.
Yeah. Can we go back to blood panel tests? Because
sure.
One of the problems I ran into in the beginning, and I would say this is probably 5 to 8 years ago when I started doing more regular blood panels, is I would ask my doctor for a blood panel test, and at the time she just gave me basically the standard. And so I didn't know what tests to ask for. I didn't know what panels to ask for. And so I just got back a very basic result. I went to, she sent me to Quest Diagnostics, and they did a good job taking my blood, and they tested it. But it didn't have any of the important things I realized a few years later that I really needed. So how should one ask for that blood panel test?
Yeah, that's... It's not easy, because going back to your point about the healthcare system, they get compensated for the basic blood panel, and you need to have a good excuse to test for a specific panel that they believe that someone in your condition or your age or your gender doesn't need to have. Yeah. So as you said, they are testing for blood markers that are pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And blood markers that are, it's good to do that. It's much better than nothing. So I wouldn't say that it's bad, but it's miss a lot of markers that are very relevant for someone that want to live better longer. So again, it's like buying a car. You can buy a very cheap car, or you can buy a very good car. The price will be a bit, but the experience will be much better. The same here. If you buy a panel that is a bit better, you will receive more information, which might allow you to find a issue that you won't find using a panel that doesn't have this or those markers. So that's the difference.
Yeah. What are some of the key markers that you recommend that people track?
Yeah, so there are some that are pretty simple that most of the clinicians are not testing. So ApoB, we just discussed it. It's a much better marker to look at the risk for cardiovascular diseases. Insulin level is a good marker for prediabetes, so it's going higher before you see an effect with A1C and glucose. Even a marker like testosterone, most males are not get tested for testosterone, and a lot of us have low of that. I would say to premenopausal women, markers such as ferritin, which is a marker that show whether can show in a good way whether you have iron deficiency, and it's not getting tested. Talking about some vitamins such as vitamin D that a lot of us are low. I think that now more and more is getting tested, but B12 is another good example. Other markers that I think that are very interesting is cortisol, which is a stress hormone that a lot of us are having stress. People that are athletic active, there is a marker called creatine kinase that basically show whether you have a muscle damage or not, but also the ratio between testosterone to cortisol and iron markers such as ferritin, but also hemoglobin and other. So what I'm trying to say, that it depends on your goal or your issues. There are kind of markers that you can test. Obviously, you can test all of them. It will be a bit more expensive, but I would recommend everyone to test the full panel at least once a year or every other year, and then focus on the markers that you have issues with and follow up and try to see that you are optimizing them.
Yeah, let's go back to testosterone for a minute. You know, I'm a male, and I'm about halfway done with my life. And
hopefully,
well, you know, I hope to live to a nice, long life. But, you know, testosterone is an issue that I hear about and I see all the time. When I'm at the gym, some of these 20-year-olds are taking testosterone as a muscle enhancement. I never dreamed about that when I was 20. But now that I'm middle-aged, you know, testosterone is a really important marker for me to look at. So specifically, like, what should I be looking at? Because testosterone is confusing, and there's also a lot of misinformation about it, right? Like, so, like if my testosterone is low, there's a couple different kinds of testosterone levels or markers that I should be looking at, similar to the way that cholesterol is confusing. There's LDL and HDL, and I don't understand really how that works either. But can you enlighten me a little bit on what I should be looking at in terms of testosterone?
Yeah, so you're right. So if we're talking about testosterone, there are a few markers related to testosterone. You have total testosterone. Basically, it's all the testosterone that you have in your bloodstream. And then you have a free testosterone, which is the testosterone that is not bound to a protein called SHBG or hemoglobin, or albumin. So there is all of that working together, and also what is interesting with testosterone can be low because you are over-exercised, or it can be low because you are not exercising at all. It can also be low because you are starving yourself. So as you know, testosterone is a sex hormone. And the goal is for us to reproduce when a good condition are around. So if you are starving yourself, some people are under caloric restriction, or I know some people are now injecting like crazy. I think that in LA, GLP-1 and to look good and all of that, that can cause a lot of testosterone. You see it also with a lot of women in a way that they are especially runners and other that exercising a lot and don't have enough fat. That's why they lose their period, and basically in a way, they are getting into menopause or artificial menopause in their formerly early years. So there are a lot of things that control testosterone. For example, sleep. If you don't sleep enough, your testosterone will most likely decrease. As I said, there is also the ratio between testosterone and cortisol. Testosterone is anabolic hormone, basically building muscle, and cortisol is catabolic, basically breaking muscle. So it's not only to look at, if you want to build muscle like the guys that you've seen in the gym, it's not only that testosterone should be high, it's also try to get the cortisol low. And so it's not as simple as taking the testosterone additive. The best way, in my opinion, and also the medical community, to increase testosterone is to exercise in moderation, in the right way, not too much, to eat well, to sleep well. But some people have a low testosterone, and they might need to take the exogenous testosterone. But I wouldn't recommend everyone to take testosterone. I think that's not good.
Right. And I guess my other question is, so is there an easy way to understand that with InsideTracker? Is it pretty clear, like, cortisol high, testosterone low, and then, you can consult your doctor or do your own personal research on how to treat that?
We have a score that the ratio between testosterone to cortisol, so we can look at that. We have the level of free testosterone, we have the level of SHBG, we have the level of total testosterone. So you have all that information, and you don't need to spend a lot of time to research. We are providing to you a very specific recommendations. What should you do in order to try to improve the level of your testosterone, in this example, in a natural and simple way? The most of it is lifestyle and exercise. There are some nutritional intervention, but the effect is very small comparing to changing your lifestyle and the exercise.
Yeah, again, I think, sort of underscoring what I see as like the main benefit of what you're doing is this can just alert you that something might be happening under the hood that you could then talk to an expert about. Could be, a fitness trainer, could be a nutritionist, could be your doctor, physician, your OBGYN. I mean, it doesn't matter, but like at least you're getting a heads up and you're not just walking around not knowing. Another thing that's really popular, I think, right now is this ADD or ADHD. Do you have any markers for this? I'm hearing a lot of people talk about ADHD. My wife has been diagnosed as ADHD, which is attention deficit. She's high functioning. She's extremely intelligent, but she has, I guess, what some people call neurodivergent brain, which is, she has thoughts going through her mind all the time. And my son has it too. He's brilliant, but also he has this sort of neurodivergent tendencies, which, make him super hyper vigilant or be able to hyper focus, but at other times not be able to focus in school and have concentration issues. Does InsideTracker address that at all yet?
No, we are not. We don't have a marker that can diagnose it. It's more like something that it's better to do with clinicians. So unfortunately, well.
Yeah. Have you explored it at all? Because I think it's all theory right now. Whether it's it's a cognitive issue, like that's just your DNA, you're born that way, or if it's a vitamin deficiency. Some people talk about this. MT. Yeah.
No, we haven't explored it, so that's something that we can definitely do, but no, so I don't want to say something that I'm not sure that it's true.
Yeah. And it might be an area worth exploring. I think it's extremely popular and prevalent. How about insulin resistance?
Yeah. So insulin resistance is it's a big issue in our society. As I'm sure that we haven't been born with a refrigerator next to us or a country next to us, and we haven't been supposed to eat all the time. And what we are doing is we are challenging our systems, specifically the beta cells in the pancreas that create the insulin.
Yeah. What is insulin resistance? What is it?
That means that basically the person is not receiving the right signal to create insulin. And basically, he has an unbalanced level of insulin. So the cells that create it doesn't create the right amount. And at the end of the day, what happens is that the target cells, the mast cells, and the liver and other cells, basically are not reacting to insulin, because the insulin coming to the cells, there is a receptor for them, and based on that, it's telling the cells, hey, recruit the glucose into the cells, and then kills the glucose. But what happens is that because it doesn't happen, that's the resistance, and then the beta cells creating more and more insulin. And that's why the early signs of diabetes is basically increase of the insulin level. And at the end of the day, like every cell or machine, they cannot create it all the time, so they are basically dying. And then you become diabetic because your body cannot create the insulin anymore. And again, the problem with that is the fact that we eat so much processed sugar or processed carbohydrate, and basically we are out of control. And instead of consuming natural food, like fruits, for example, that still have the sugar, but they also have the fiber. And what the fiber is doing is allowing the sugars to absorb slowly, so it doesn't make a lot of challenge to the cells that create the insulin. So I think that there is data that show that maybe 80% of the insulin resistant, or at the end for diabetes, can be preventable by lifestyle changes, which is amazing. Think about it, 80%. It's like, some people are really poor, and as you said, they have bad genetics, but it's 1 in 5. Most of us are not. Most of us is our behavior.
Yeah. Maybe the last thing I want to talk about is this sort of biological age versus your actual age. You know, I was surprised when I took the test and I input my data in InsideTracker that I am 10 years younger biologically than my actual age. I was shocked. I mean, I have been working really hard at my fitness and my health. I've been doing it now for about 8 years, maybe almost 9 years. I've been working really hard, but how accurate is that?
Yeah, so let me first maybe provide a background about what is biological age. So all of us know what is our chronological age. We are celebrating our birthday. We know that we are 21 or 25 or 27, or hopefully not more than that. And then we have the biological age. And the biological age is basically a way to go and understand what's happening inside your body, and based on that, predict what is your internal age. So it's not your driving license age, it's what happened inside your body. And there are a few ways to do that. What we are doing at InsideTracker, we are using the blood biomarkers that we discussed before, glucose and LDL and other markers, and trying to understand for each of those markers, are your level is higher or lower than what expected to someone in your age and gender. Now, if it's good to have a higher level, for example, testosterone is good to have a higher level. So if you are higher than that, that's good. But for example, for glucose, it's better to have lower. So if you are lower than that, it's good. And then we are looking at basically the delta between that. And we assign the years for that. So for example, for glucose, you are 1 year younger because your glucose is lower than someone in your age and the average of your age and gender. And for testosterone, you're also higher, so it's also good. So another year, and then we combine all together in an algorithm and provide to you your biological age. Now you ask if it's a real one. I would say that it's an assumption. It's not, or we're trying to give you some picture of where you are, whether you are younger and older. I cannot tell you 1% that you are really 10 years younger. What I can tell you is based on the blood biomarkers that you got tested and were included in this biological age, that's show that indeed you are look younger than your peers at that time. What is nice about that, I think, it's that it's really simplified the story for the end user, because as you said, we just discussed the cholesterol and the testosterone, and it's very complex. You might need to have a PhD to understand what is going on there. Mm-hmm. But it's very easy for everyone to say, oh, my biological age, as you said, is 10 years younger than my chronological age, so high level, I'm good. Mm-hmm. But if it was the opposite, and you had your biological age was 10 years older than your chronological age, oh, I'm not good. So basically, it's a good way for you to understand more or less where you're standing. Some people stop there. Other people come and say, hey, I'm 10 years younger. Let's take your example, Brian. But I can also be 12 years younger. Let's assume that you have another 2 years. So then you can drill down and understand what are the markers that make me older. Maybe it's HSCRP, which is a marker of inflammation. So then you look at that, and then InsideTracker telling, Brian, if you want to improve your HSCRP, you should do A, B, and C. So basically, it's allow every person, the very type A that want to be in 10 years is not enough. I want to be 12 and 15, and maybe it's people like me, to push further. And for some people say, oh, I'm 10 years younger, that's good enough, you can stop there. So that's basically the biological age. I think that's a good tool to provide to you some understanding, high level, let's say 30,000 foot of where are you comparing to where your peers are.
Yeah. And so where's the white space in the technology? Where's InsideTracker heading? Like, what new things will we be able to discover about our bodies in the near future? Can you share anything with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that we are going, and it's not only the InsideTracker, I think that the industry, we are going to a place that it's not one diagnostic solver. So you mentioned Whoop before. Whoop is great, and I'm using Whoop, and it's giving you a lot of information, but it's providing you one layer of information. But when you have the data from Whoop that give you all the fitness tracker data, and you have the layer of the blood, and you have the layer of the DNA, and then you have maybe the layer of the microbiome, and the layer of continuous glucose monitoring, and maybe the food consumption, suddenly you have a lot of layers. So when you have a lot of layers, you can start creating like 3D structure. Mm-hmm. And based on that, you understand your body very well and look at it from different angles, and then pinpoint the situation better and provide a better recommendation that can allow you to make a better improvement for your body, and hopefully, again, allow you to live better longer. So I think that now the challenge is how do you integrate all of those inputs together and provide a good picture for the end user, but also a simple app that will allow the user to take the right intervention, to implement it, and to by that become a better himself and hopefully live better longer.
Yeah. And is there a way to easily share this with our traditional doctors?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there are, currently it's a still small amount of clinician that call longevity clinician or concierge clinician that's starting to include more and more prevention into their practice. But I think that the challenge is, for example, that most of them don't even include data for fitness practice. You'll show them, I don't know, you'll go to your clinician and show him or her the Whoop data. She will kick you out and say, what do you want from me? I don't understand. But if an entity such as InsideTracker will allow the clinician to understand and say, don't look at all the data. What is important for Brian is maybe the number of steps that he's doing per day. maybe the REM sleep is very important for Brian, and maybe the VO2 max. So let's look at that and show her a table that show how Brian changes those variables during the last year, the last month, the last quarter, and provide to her also some explanation and maybe an intervention of two that you can do in order to do that. I think that that's the right direction, because, again, the clinicians are very busy. They have, on average 2,000 patients, and they are working very hard.
Yeah.
And they are spending maybe 15 minutes with each patient. So you need to help them to come with a conclusion very easy, very fast. And I think that AI, machine learning solution that will allow them to see and then decide whether it's a fit for the patient or not, that's the right solution for the future.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you for to give some advice to my listeners, to my viewers, about how to live a healthier life. My message to my audience is take responsibility for your own health now. It's great that we have technology like InsideTracker and others. I'm very grateful for that. But at the very least, my message is take responsibility for your own health. Don't assume that your doctor is going to be watching out for you, because she isn't, he isn't. You've got to be aware of your own, what's happening in your own body. Gil, what would you say to people who want to live longer, be healthier, have a higher quality of life?
Yeah, I agree with you 1%. And your body is the most complex machine that you have, and you cannot buy a new one. So it's not like a car that you can go to online and buy a new body. So you need to maintain it well. And in order to maintain it well, you need to understand what are the key markers that show you whether you maintain it well or not. And it's there are some solutions such as InsideTracker that can help you, but a lot of it is also trial and error. And I call it N of 1 experiment. So basically you can experiment with yourself and try to say, hey, the day that I eat or drink coffee is a good example. Some people drinking coffee late is do nothing for them. For me, if I will smell coffee at 10 a.m., I won't sleep tonight. So everyone is different. Again, you can have some hint by your DNA. You can look at the DNA and see if you have a risk for that or not. But a lot of that is a trial and error. So you need to try to understand what's happening with your body and what is the effect of intervention that you are providing. It's pretty hard because we have a lot of intervention. If you think about it, in a normal day, we make maybe 200 decisions about nutrition. When to eat, what to eat, or what to eat. Think about it that on average, we eat 40 different kinds of food in a week. So it's very complex. But try to pay attention for that and see whether in the day that you went to the gym late, was it influencing your sleep or not? Exercising early, is it better to you or not? Are you a early riser or late riser? There are a lot of things that you can trial and error. And again, there are a lot of tools, and it's not only InsideTracker that can guide you and help you and allow you to understand the machine that you have. Again, we haven't been born with a manual that tell us exactly how to take care of our body. So we need some help, and maybe in the future, InsideTracker or something like that would be the manual, and you can open and read and tell, oh, now I know, I need to do. We are not there yet, but maybe that's the future.
I mean, we were just sitting back, chopping it up, reminiscing about the good old days and all that. Tracking my roots, where I came from and where I'm going. But like I say, man,